It's Sunday, it's tea time, let's start the stream. Hello friends and welcome to today's stream. And if you're already here early, then do come into the chat and say hello. Be nice to know who's here, who's with us. Introduce yourself and let us know what you're up to today. If you're doing any drawing or animating. Ah, Sword of God, hi. Cody Bop, welcome. Hope you're all well today. What are you all up to? Are you joining me for some animation? Or just along for the ride? Gag Hacks, welcome. Nice of you to come along and join us. Are you still doing some animation today, or are you doing some drawing? Well, I guess you can all hear me okay, and hopefully the video is working better than last week. We had a few issues at the start last week, if you was here, where the video was just crawling really slowly. Hopefully that's fixed today and working much better. Okay, so just to let you know, I'm streaming here on Twitch and on YouTube. So if you want to change over to your platform of choice, you can find me in there. And the stream will be recorded and be shared on YouTube. So if you haven't got time to stay to the end, you can watch it again later. And I'll put some timestamps into the description so that you can catch up to the part that you missed or jump to the part that that you're interested in. Fozine, hello, welcome. You're on YouTube, great, good. Well, I've got Twitch and YouTube chat windows open, so hopefully I can catch all the chat today. No tea today. I think there might be, Gag. You know me. So you can also follow me on my socials. So I'm on Facebook and Twitter, where I share video clips and animations and links to other people's animations that you might be interested in. And if you're on YouTube, down in the description, you can also see a link to my Discord, where you can come along and chat with other interested users. And if you want to help out the channel, you can also treat me by following the link in the description to buy me a coffee. Or, as Gagax was saying, a Darren Tea. Cheers. So what am I doing today? Well, I've got a couple of things I want to do. First, I want to take a quick look over the new version of Tahoma. And that's what I've got running here today. And that's version 1.1 beta. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have the full version 1.1 out with any final bug fixes fixed. But it's got plenty of new features and plenty of bug fixes in there. So we'll take a look at some of the features today. And we've already looked at some before in earlier videos and in news videos and streams. But I thought I'd cover all the items we've got listed in their final release notes. Do I sound like this in real life? I think so, Sword of God. I think this is my voice. I don't think I've changed it. And then after I've looked at Tahoma, I want to take a quick look again at walk cycles, which we looked at last week for most of the stream, last Sunday. But last week I focused really on the spacing and on the feet and leg positions. And today I want to introduce a little bit of the rotation of the hips and shoulders, and just for more practice of working with walk cycles. So we'll take a look at that, and then I'll explain what I'm trying to do, and I'll try and put another quick walk cycle together using yet another little monster. And the reason I'm using little monsters is thanks to Tony Gaddis, who animates monsters on YouTube and on Twitter. If I bring this over here. So here's Tony's Twitter page. And if you're not following already, do take a look at this and give him a follow. And he animates lots of little monsters, and every time I see them, they always make me smile. So when I was thinking about doing walk cycles, I thought I'd try and do it with little monsters. So they won't be drawn quite as well as his are, but it'll be good practice to practice working with walk cycles. And I've got to say a big thanks to Tony last week for his great donation to the channel. It's really appreciated and really helps. So thank you for that, Tony. So Leonard asks, when do I think Tahoma 1.1 will be released? Well, the beta's out now, and it kind of depends how many bugs are reported in this version. But I'd expect in perhaps a week or two maybe. But if someone else is on the stream that can answer that question, if Jeremy's here or somebody, Manong John maybe, and you can let us know, then please do so. But hopefully a week or two we'll get the final version. But you can actually download the beta version if you want to try working with it and test out some of the features. And I do recommend doing so, particularly being as the Tahoma or Tahoma 2D is a portable version. So you can download one version without it affecting other versions because it's just a zip file. So you download the zip, unzip it, and then run the executable. So you can run them side by side if you've already got a version running, or if you've got OpenToonz installed. So you can run it, try it out, and then just delete the folder. Yes, Gayhacks, I'm going to start from scratch for the walk cycle. I don't think I'll make it through to a final inked version today. We'll see how we feel later. But the plan is to at least get the sketching done to get the main part of the movement and to understand the timing to see if it works. But last week I worked on the walk cycle and started from scratch, and that took quite a long time in between chatting. So I'm hopefully going to try and get through that a little bit quicker by skipping over a few explanations that I made last week, but we'll see how we get on today. Excellent, thank you, Gag. It'd be great to see your outcome if you want to share it on the Discord channel, and anybody else if you want to animate along with me and show me your versions of the walk cycle and see how we get on. So I'm just checking all of the chat windows, make sure I've got all of the questions that's coming through, and I think we're okay for that for now. And also, as we go through today, if you've got any questions about OpenToonz or Tahoma, or to be honest, anything animation related, fire them over and I'll see if I can answer them. And if I can't, then maybe somebody else in the chat can. So we'll see how that goes. So if you're ready, should we take a look at a little bit of Tahoma news? I think so. Okay, if we bring up the release notes first and bring them onto screen where you can see them. Here we go. So you can see the URL at the top of the screen there. So if you want to take a look at that yourself, you can browse to it and see what's in this version. And then at the bottom, we've got the downloads for each system for macOS, Linux and Windows. And for Windows, it's just the zip file that we need. So I'm working today with Tahoma 1.1 beta. So hopefully we'll see all of the features or some of the features in action today. So let me put that to one side and then we'll take a look at them one by one. So as he says, it's got 91 bug fixes, tweaks and features in this version. So he's been very busy putting it together. So again, as I always do, thank you, Jeremy, and well done for what you're putting together for the community. It's really appreciated by everybody. I do get a lot of feedback from people using Tahoma that tell me it's so much better than OpenToonz and so much easier to use. Okay, so the first point we've got here mentioned is the vanishing points and the advanced line drawings are now available on vector levels. So originally it was only on the raster and toons raster levels. So if I create a smart raster level and leave that there, and I'll name the column SR for smart raster, and also a vector level here. So if you're using the brush tool, and let me make the line a little bit bigger for you. It's quite big. So you can draw curved lines, but if you now hold Shift key, you can also draw straight lines in any direction. And as you start to draw the line, it draws the straight line, and you can move it to the right position until you release the pointer. And if you hold the Control key, the lines are locked to 15-degree angles, starting with horizontal and vertical, and then 15-degree angles in between. And the final thing was the vanishing points. So if you hold Control and Alt, you can place a vanishing point on screen, like that, and you'll see just about a green circle of where the vanishing point is. And if you hold the Alt key, you can then draw towards that vanishing point, or away from. And if you hold Control and Alt, you can put more than one vanishing point on screen, and then draw towards either of the two vanishing points. Okay, sticking with the vector brush, you can now draw behind. So if I go to, in fact, if I stay on this level and in this frame and add a new colour, it'll be easier to see. So if I look on the toolbar options at the top here, I've got a draw under tick box, and if that's ticked, it means that as I draw, my red line will appear underneath anything that's already on screen. So without it, I draw on top, and with it, I draw underneath. Really, really useful. And that, along with the autofill option and auto close, means that as I draw a shape, the shape will be automatically closed by joining back to the first point. So this is now on vector levels in the same way as it was on the smart raster levels. So as he says, there's also a massive new grid and guide overlay system. So that's using this drop down here. So if I open the drop down, we'll see the rule of thirds is ticked. And if I press the button, it brings up these grid lines at 1/3 positions horizontally and vertically on screen. If I go to new drawing, you can see that better. And you can instead use the golden ratio. You can show the field guide, which is the camera guide that used to be in OpenToons, and you can show horizontal and vertical grids that you can also change the distance between them and the offset of where they sit on screen. There's a new horizon option which shows a horizon line, and you can change the distance between each of the guidelines and the offset of where it appears on screen, and the angle. So you can have the horizon line at a Dutch angle or entirely to one side or the other. There we go. Or an isometric grid for isometric drawing. And if I add vanishing points by holding Control and Alt on screen, in fact I've already got the two on there previously, so let's remove those by clicking on them again. I can show the ray points go into those vanishing points. And you can change the angle between each of the lines to show more lines or fewer, and you can change their opacity so they're less visible but available to be seen on screen as you need to. And also for the horizontal and vertical grids, you can also change their opacity with the large slider at the bottom. The horizon line is fantastic, GagHacks. It's really going to help a lot of people. And if you follow Tony Gaddis, you'll see it's something that he draws on screen manually himself. So I think he might find this useful as well. No Sword of God. OpenToonz doesn't have that. It is Tahoma 2D only. It may later go back to OpenToonz, but for now it's just in Tahoma. We've also got Linux builds thanks to Manong John. So Linux users can now get hold of Tahoma, which is really, really good news. Webcams should also work on Linux, so that's great. Oh, copying and pasting. So you can now paste images into Tahoma copied from other programs. So that's using the standard clipboard and Control-C, Control-V. So I can also demonstrate this here by, on my Windows machine, holding the Windows key, the Shift key and S. The whole screen goes dark, and that allows me to draw a box on screen to highlight and copy an area of the screen as an image into the buffer. So if I draw over, say, the edit area here, when I release, that's now copied into my buffer. And then on a new frame, I can press Control-V, and that'll be pasted as an image. You can see here a raster drawing in the current drawing. So now this is just a raster drawing. I've taken screenshots of the screen here. It's not necessarily useful, but it's kind of a good demonstration of how you can do it. But if you've got another drawing program, say Critter, or even using Paint, to be honest, you can then highlight using the selection tool an area of the screen, press Control-C, come to Tahoma, press Control-V, and you've got a copy on screen of that drawing, which is so useful. Oh, it's a shame, GagHacks, about Tahoma being laggy. Have you set up your graphics card with Tahoma to set up a 3D option for it? Because that can help quite a lot sometimes. So if you haven't done that, it might be worth doing, especially if you've downloaded Tahoma to a new location on disk, so it might not recognise where it is. So the next thing on here, so you can also make the main window transparent for reference drawing. So let me bring something on screen. I've got a video of how you can set up your graphics card. If you take a look on YouTube, it's called something like prevent crashes or using your graphics card. In fact, let me find it for you. And if you save this window to one side, watch the video later and maybe set it up later. Let me just find that. It is fairly straightforward how to do it, but there's a couple of steps to go through, but not all graphics drivers show the same options, so it's something to be careful of. Let's have a look. Yes, that's the one. Let me just copy that link and I'll paste it here. There you go. Joe Henning, hi, welcome. Welcome to the stream. So at the minute I'm just going through some of the features in version 1.1 beta of Tahoma. The ones listed in the release notes, just to let people know what we've got now. And I'm almost through. So the last few here. So you can make the main window transparent for reference drawing. So if you've got an image nearby, let's have a look at this. How about this one? I'll bring this in front of the screen here. And if I go back to Tahoma, and then in the view menu, tick toggle transparency, and you'll get this little slider. And if you adjust the slider, it changes the transparency of Tahoma So in Tahoma, you can then use this to trace the drawing underneath. There we go. Bring that down. There we go. You get the idea. So that's really useful for checking up on your references, or for using references for backgrounds or for characters. The camera view mode has the adjustable transparency slider that I demonstrated in the video a few weeks ago. So where you've normally got a, if I draw in vector mode, I can draw outside of the canvas area like this. But the camera is currently set to the size of the white area here. And if you go to the camera mode, that shows just what's in the camera, like this ordinarily. But you've now got this slider next to the camera to be able to show a little bit more of what's outside of the area. So it helps you with lining up your drawings to know what you've got nearby for working on animations and sliding backgrounds. So that's really, really useful. The ruler marks are now based on pixels. So that's these marks on the ruler around the left and the top of the screen. You can now temporarily toggle snapping with the vector geometric tool by holding Control and Shift. And it works on the vector brush as well. And as he says, there's also many bug and crash fixes. There's quite a few minor changes made. So the actual name of the program is changed now to Tahoma 2D rather than just Tahoma. The Windows menu is now called Panels menu because actually it does bring up the panels that you dock to the sides of the screen. So that makes more sense there. And in many places where we used to refer to items as the X sheet, when it's really the whole scene, they're now referred to as the scene. So if you go to the FX room and look in the FX schematic, you'll see that the node here that all of the columns plug into is called scene, when before it used to be called X sheet, because the output here is actually the output of the whole scene rather than the X sheet, which is a specific control. And also, when you used to load sub X sheets, as they were called in OpenToons, they're now called sub scenes. So it's a small name change just to make things a little bit clearer. Hi there, Tamid. Welcome. Welcome. It's good to have you with us today. And that's all the main changes that he's got labelled here in the feature list. There's one more that I do know of. If I change the timeline to the X sheet view by right clicking on a column header and choosing toggle orientation, so we get the X sheet view. At the top of each column, you've got the parent column listed. And if you're not sure about parent columns and using the schematic, don't worry for this. But for those of you that do, it now means that you can click on the name of the parent column and change it to a different column directly from the X sheet, which is a really useful shortcut. But I'll bring this back to the timeline view. Like this. So Tamid is asking, is it better if he switches to the new version? That's really up to you. The core features of OpenToons are in Tahoma 2D, but Tahoma 2D does have these extra features that we've been talking about. So the for me in particular, there's the drawing controls where you can hold Shift, Control and Alt, so that when using the brush tool you can draw straight lines in different ways. That's so useful that I just wouldn't use, at the minute, I wouldn't use OpenToons without them, being as Tahoma has them in it. And also using colour palettes. The simplicity of the colour palette now, where you've got the plus button to add colours and the tab button to add tabs to organise your colours, it makes it so much better for me. So I'd recommend all new users to use Tahoma 2D. I think it's a simpler view to use overall. But if you're already using OpenToons and you're happy with it and you don't need the new features, then there's no reason not to carry on. Because both programs do have the same core features, and as features are added in Tahoma, some will be moved over to OpenToons, and new features and bug fixes in OpenToons will be brought over to Tahoma. So they will be keeping quite in sync with just 1 or 2 extra features added in Tahoma. Yes, hi there Solar Pop. The new clipboard paste is really useful. Absolutely useful. And that's fantastic. Yes, yeah, me too. Me too. I've not opened OpenToons for such a long time, since Tahoma first came out. Okay, so that's all of the Tahoma news. So if you do have any questions about OpenToons or Tahoma, do fire them over and I'll see if I can answer them for you. I agree, Tamid, yeah, absolutely. The simplicity of the interface is just so much nicer. And as I say, it has got the same features, so you're not losing out on any features, and the features are all here. It's just that so many of the features you didn't use have now been hidden to give you a simpler view. And the Tahoma view I've got here will be slightly different to the one you'll get from downloading, so it's worth me mentioning those. And the first one perhaps is the table view here. If I go to a blank frame, where I've got the circle of the table behind the camera, and I've just displayed that by ticking the box in the view menu. And that's just so that I can tell the difference more easily between the table view and the camera view. There is a slight change in colour, but for me, I think really I'm used to OpenToons having this table view, so I brought that on screen. And I've also hidden a couple of visual features. Firstly, the camera box. If I tick that, there's 2 things you'll see. Firstly is the X in the middle of the screen, and for me that always seems to get in the way, because more often than not I want to draw in the centre of the screen, so I like to take that away. And the outside line is a red dotted line around the camera area to show where the camera is, and until you start animating the camera you don't need to necessarily see where that is, because the background of the camera is shown in white anyway. And if you have multiple cameras, it's really useful to see the camera name at the top corner here. So for a simple view where you've got one camera not animated, I like to hide the camera box, just to remove a little bit of visual clutter. And I think that's about it in the differences. I've also added a couple of keyboard shortcuts to make a few features simpler to access, but that's all very personal in what you need to use and what features you want to hand on the keyboard. But if you want to change the keyboard settings, you do so from the File menu, Configure Shortcuts. And you can change the shortcuts in here to whatever you need. Okay, so should we get on and work on the walk cycle? I think so. Firstly, let me take a look at last week's simple walk cycle. Okay, so basically it was this little monster I wanted to work on, and it's not a great drawing, but is okay, it'll do. And as I said earlier, I chose Little Monster thanks to Tony Gaddis. I was inspired by his little monsters walking and interacting, so I wanted to do a bit of a walk cycle, so I thought I'd try a Little Monster. Yes, Gag Hacks, both. The software's animation software are graphics intensive and processor intensive. OpenToonz and Tahoma don't use the graphics card as much as they should do. So unfortunately you don't get as much benefit of having a great graphics card, but they do use some parts of it, which is why for setting up both the programs you want to point your graphics card to set up a 3D settings for the program. And this is something that's on the Discord I've got a link to describe how to do it. So if you're on the Discord, then you can go to the OpenToonz Essentials channel, and it's got details of that and setting up FFmpeg and a few other tips for getting started with OpenToonz. So last week I focused mainly on the timing and the position of the feet and legs for the walk cycle. So the body and head, as you can see, is just a copied drawing moving up and down at the right time, and then I added the legs to move that walking body in a walk cycle, and then at the end I added the arms just to try and move in the opposite direction, but I'd not planned for them. So you can see at the top here the arm is kind of going up and down as it moves. It doesn't seem connected to the same place on the shoulder. So that's a little something I want to try and look at today. Ah, Broccoli, welcome. Yes, I remember you. I was trying to eat you the other day. I remember you getting a bit upset about that. And just to point out, these last images at the end here are just a sketch of drawing one, but coloured in, ready for the thumbnail that I used for the video last week. So today I'd like to draw the walk cycle for another little monster. But I'd also, instead of just having the legs and the arms moving, I'd like to have the main body moving. And to do that we need to consider what moves on the body. And to help, I created another project to show you what I mean. So let me just load that. Okay, so here's a little character, just showing him walking to the right. I've not done the animation for this, but I've just laid him out on screen. And the two things we're going to look at today are his hips and his shoulders. And if I show the representation of the hips, I've drawn this cube over the hips. And what I want to do is have the hip cube rotating as he walks. So if you imagine as you walk, your right leg moves forward, your hips will move forward in that the right hand hip moves forward and the left hand hip moves backwards. And then as you bring your left leg forward, your left hip goes forwards and your right hip comes backwards. And they move like this, backwards and forwards as you walk. So if I play that, you can see the cube rotating, showing where the hip moves going backwards and forwards. It also rotates up and down in this way, but I'm not going to be concerned with that today, just the backwards and forwards movement. And then the shoulder blades move in exactly the opposite direction. So as your right hip goes forward, your right shoulder blade goes backwards. So that's represented by a cube I've drawn at the top here. And if I take the sketch away, so you can see that. So you can see hopefully the two cubes moving in opposite directions, and that's what I want to try and get into the animation today. Then in between that we've got the core of the body, which is just twisting and turning in between those two parts of your body. So if you think about your hips being a solid piece of bone structure that's physically moving left and right, and the same for your shoulders being solid that's moving left and right, And in between, you've got your tummy area that just twists and turns, joining those together. And there's one more thing as you walk, and that is the bounce. So let me change to the orientation of the X sheet, and then I can show you the feature I was talking about earlier for parenting. So if I go to the hips here, and instead of being connected to the table, I attach it to the bounce. Now when I play this, I've set up a number of keys to go up and down to show the walk. So here you can perhaps see the walk a bit better, where this bottom cube is the hips moving backwards and forwards as you walk. And just to clear up the parenting here, if I go to the FX room and we take a look at the schematic view, you can see all that connection did was connected the hips to the bounce column instead of directly to the table. So it's the equivalent of doing that. So this is the kind of movement that I want to get in today as we practice this walk cycle, where the hips are moving backwards and forward and twisting, and so are the shoulders. So that's all the prep. Let's jump in, start a new project, and start drawing. And if you've got any questions, do fire them into the chat. You just check on the chat, make sure that I've not missed anything. Okay. I'll go back to the timeline view by toggle orientation. There we go. And I use a smart raster level. And you may have noticed I've got the timeline toolbar here, which again, by default, when you first run Tahoma 2D, you won't have. But if you right click on the column header, you can toggle the quick toolbar to show that. And that allows me quicker access and direct access to some features that you use so often. But for me, the first three buttons are for adding new levels, and they're so useful having them directly on the timeline. So the middle one is the smart raster. So I click that, and that brings up the new level dialog. And the only shortcut is it sets the type in the drop down. Okay, so the kind of monster I was after, to try and demonstrate this, I was going to draw him as a kind of cubed character, so you can see the front and back and side of him moving around as he walks. So if I firstly add a new palette entry, and now choose the pencil palette entry because it just looks nicer. So it could take a while to load the raster brushes. There we are. Yep, that's the one. Okay, so first I want to draw the rough size of the body before the twisting and turning. So I'll draw it side on for now. And I'm not going to change the size of him too much today because obviously if he's got broad shoulders but is very, very thin in depth, as he turns, he'll go from being really thin to being quite broad. So the size of him will change quite a lot, but I won't do too much of that today. So let's just add a bit of a body. Make sure I've got enough room for his legs. Okay, then I want to know where his arms are going to come out and where his legs are going to come out so they don't bob about as they did last week. So we've got a few things to mark on here. Remember, this is just a sketch level, so you can put what you like on here because we're going to trace over it later anyway in Neat. So I'm going to have, if I imagine him facing to the side, he's going to have a big old pair of eyes. I'll have a big old droopy nose, a horn, or yeah. I've already had a little think about what I want for this character. I want a bit like an ear, so let me make that rounded a little bit. Okay, and his legs will come out just at the bottom here, so they will rotate, so they'll move left and right as he walks. So I need to make sure he's got room to move along here. So I'll mark a little line on where the top of the leg will be. He'll have an arm, if he's on the side, coming out here, so that kind of a place. So again, let me mark perhaps the shoulder blade there. For some reason the pencil doesn't want to work. Let me just change that. There we go. That'll be okay. And then we want to duplicate him, so his body, I can draw his body in different places. So we'll extend this out by dragging that little handle to drawing 8, because it's an 8-frame walk cycle. I'll highlight the last 7 frames and press the D key to duplicate drawing 1. And because I've highlighted 7 frames, it duplicates it 7 times. So I've got 7, or 8 now, unique drawings based on that one drawing. So we've got a choice of moving him up and down first or doing the rotation. I'm not sure which is easier just yet. This is part of the reason of today's stream, for me to practice with this. So I think I'll do the rotation first. So if I bring up my drawing for the walk steps, which I've got down here. So there's 4 main positions for each foot, the left and the right. Is contact, down, the passing position, and up. So we'll mark that on the drawing. Let me put this over here. So the first one is contact. I use the arrow key to move along. Then it's down. Then passing position. Then up. Then contact. Then down. Then passing. Then up. Okay, so again, we'll take a look at our drawing. And I would recommend, if you're new to doing walk cycles, that you just do a quick Google image search and search for something like animation walk cycle. And I can virtually guarantee that on the first page you'll come across this drawing and others similar that will help set up your first cycle drawing and these first few positions. So the first drawing is the contact, and that's where his legs are the most wide apart. So for that, we decide which leg is going to be at the front. And I think, let me bring this drawing out of the way for me there. Okay, so we'll have the left leg, the one nearest to us, coming forward at the front. So the left leg needs to start at the top here, at the left hand side, because it's twisted to the front. And then the down position, it's moving slightly back. So we'll bring that slightly back. Let me just undo that. Only slightly. Then the passing is kind of in the center. The up position is towards the back, And then back to the contact again, it's at the very back, so we'll draw it just here. And then again for the down position, it's coming towards the front, so I'll move it forward a little bit. Then the passing is the centre, and the up is near the front, and then we'll come back to drawing 1 where it's at the front again. So if we just play that, we just see the leg moving backwards and forwards, or at least the hip for the left leg. And we'll do the same for the arm, but this time it's the opposite way around. So while the left leg is going forwards, the left arm is coming backwards. I'm not going to rotate the top part of the body as much, because I don't think he wants to move with his left shoulder all the way to the front, then all the way to the back as he walks. That feels like too much movement for now. So I'll do it a little bit more subtle for the shoulder. So where the left leg is towards the front, I use the selection tool, and we'll move this by highlighting it, and I'll use the cursor key to move it to the right rather than dragging it, so I've got the same height. Although if I mark it with the line on the ruler, that means I can keep it in the same position. Let's zoom in. Okay. I'll see this at the bottom here. So the down position, the arm is moving slightly more forward, so I'll leave it near to the side. Then in the middle for the passing, to the left for the up, and then contact again at the far left, but not so far away. Yes, the hands and legs move depending on the character's proportions, and also perhaps of the attitude of the character. So what mood he's in. If he's quite sad, he'll move quite slowly, perhaps with his head down, shoulders slumped over, maybe moving like this. Or if he's quite happy and jolly, he might have his chest up and his arms moving quite a lot. So depending on the character's temperament is exactly how you want to move it. Can we change the brush cursor into Tahoma? Great question. Ukuman, terrible pronouncing name, so apologies. You can change some parts of the brush cursor. If I go to the preferences dialog, in here, is it in the interface section? One of these sections is something about the cursor. Here, in the tools section, you've got the cursor type, small, large or crosshair. So it might be worth changing those, changing it to one of the other options and having a go and see if it works better for you. And then the cursor style, left-handed or simple are the two options. And I believe left-handed will just simply place any images on the opposite side. So if I go to the erase option, you can see it has a letter L, because I'm chosen to erase lines at the minute, which is drawn at the right hand side of the eraser, and for left-handed use it will be on the left hand side. But have a go and see if those work for you. Okay, so that's the first 5 drawings, and then the shoulder will move back again towards the centre, or back towards the right. For the down, the passing, that's probably about right to be honest, and the up, if I put an onion skin for drawing number 1, and I can move it close to drawing number 1. So let's take a look at that and see that they move in opposite directions at a reasonable pace. Good. So even though it's a 4-frame cycle, for the cycle to repeat, you kind of use 5 frames. So let me just briefly go over what I mean here. So where the leg is at the front, moving towards the back, like this. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 moving in that direction, and then it goes to the very end with 1, 2, 3, 4 going in the opposite direction. So there's 4 drawings in each direction, but to cycle, the end drawing becomes kind of a secret number 5. So you've got 5 drawings. And this comes back to something I've talked about a few times, of where you've got a movement from one position to another. So one position here through to another, so a start through to the end. I'll often position a drawing in the middle and then add a drawing close to the start and one close to the end to ease out of the start and ease in to the end. And that's your five frame movement. And that's kind of what we're doing for the arms and for the legs. So drawing number 1, you'll see the leg is at the left hand side and it moves through 2, 3, 4 and 5 to the far right. So if I show those onion skins, you can kind of see, in fact if I go from the opposite side, you can see 1 and 2 is close together, 3 is in the middle, and 4 and 5 are close together on the opposite sides. And that gives a nice smooth movement going from one position to position number 5. So let's see that moving. So that's hopefully the shoulders moving left and right, and also the hips moving left and right. So now we've got that movement moving in a straight direction, we can now move the body up and down. So again, if I bring in the template that we've got from just Googling the image for an animation walk cycle, the contact pose is considered the standard middle pose. If the character walks, they go down, obviously into the down pose. They then swing upwards in the passing pose towards the peak at the top for the up pose, and then back down for the contact, which then continues down into the down pose. So you've got this cycle, a kind of a wave moving as the walk cycle goes forward, as the head moves up and down in a slow arching movement. So I'll draw or add a line to the ruler to mark the top of the head in drawing number 1. So for the down position, I'll use the selection tool. Oops, I'll highlight the drawing and then bring him down. Let's turn on the onion skin so you can see exactly how far down he's coming. Then we've got the passing position where he's going slightly higher than the contact, which is that line there. Then the up position, which is even higher, back down to the contact on the line, then the down position again. And you could of course place this in the same down position or the same amount down as you had on the previous down position, but it's nice to have some variation from walking from one leg to the other. So it's nice just to freehand it and to place it in roughly the right position, but not exactly mirroring. So passing slightly up and the up at the top. So let's see how that looks. So let's hit save, or at least save all, and do save regularly. Even though Tahoma 2D, touch wood, so far hasn't crashed once for me while I've been using it. It seems to be much more stable than OpenTunes, but I still suggest that you save regularly just in case something goes wrong. So let's hit play on that. So you can see I'm playing this at 6 frames per second. So each drawing here is being shown for 1 frame, which means if you translate that up to a 24 frame timed out walk cycle, each of these drawings lasts for 4 frames. So if you watch the hips as they move, you kind of see this arching movement as it goes from the front to the back to the front to the back, and same for the arms, they do the same. Hi there, Soda Pop. So Soda Pop asks, do I ever outline my work in vector? I have done in the past. I tend not to so much these days, mainly because of the problems with filling for colouring the drawings. A lot have been improved since I have tried doing it in vector, so I probably should go back and try again. And the auto group and auto fill options that just come out in this version of Tahoma might encourage me to try again sometime. But since I first started using OpenToons, as it was, and using vector, I've learned a few more techniques for better accurate filling. So maybe I should. And using vector is going to be really useful, especially for character movement, because it means you can zoom in and out to change the scale of a character without losing the fidelity. So it's probably worthwhile trying again sometime. But for sketching, I just love the smart raster levels. Using the pencil tool, you've got enough of the features of vector to make it worthwhile doing. So I really love this level type, which is why you'll see me using it most of the time. Okay, so let's actually draw in these legs and arms for the 4 drawings. Cheers. Okay, so big monster legs, what do they look like? So the first drawing is the contact pose, where the leg is just outstretched and coming straight down to the ground, with this big monster foot come up here. I'm not going to worry too much about how neat this is, or about having the monster on character. I can do that in the next section of drawing. Yeah, you can. That's right. You can control your lines better, Soda Pop. So once you've drawn them, you can then adjust them using the control point editor, which is a great feature. And I do use vector for some drawing, but not really for character drawing. But as I say, maybe I should change that and give it a go. Okay, so that's the first leg, and then the leg at the back is at the opposite side to the character. So bring that down here. In fact, that line is far too straight. Let's give him a bigger thigh. And the same for this. So how are you getting on, Gag Hacks, with your monster or for your drawing cycle? Do you want to fill us all in? How are you getting on with it? Is anybody else out there drawing today with me? Okay, so then down pose, the legs move slightly further back and the knees bent. And if you remember last time, I drew a guide on the floor to show exactly where the feet should be. I won't do that today. I will estimate where they should be, and I'll add the guide later when I neaten this drawing up. So for simplicity, and to get this drawing quicker, I'll just draw on the screen where I think the feet should be. And again, the back leg has to move slightly forward, because as you notice, the front leg is moving backwards and they're coming together, ready to overtake each other on the passing stage. So make sure we draw this in front of the other one. And because I'm streaming today, then there's going to be some lag as I draw, which is a little bit frustrating, but we'll make do with it, and we'll see how we can get on. And don't forget, the leg nearest the screen is drawn lower down the screen, and the one furthest away, the right leg in this case, is drawn higher up the screen, further back to add some dimensionality to it. So the passing pose, the leg is in the middle here, the left leg nearest to us. Again, a bigger thigh here. And I will trace over this leg, this foot here, use the selection tool. I'll bring that back to here. So it's the same scale. And now I can see clearly that the position of drawing number 2 isn't in between those drawings. So I will move that back a little bit. Okay. So D. Rambo asks, would I use another program to smooth out the raster outlines at the end of my project because they're really pixelated? No, I wouldn't. I think the pixelation issue isn't really an issue. If you have a large enough resolution for your project, it should be fine. So I use standard HD, and when I create the scene at the start, if I bring up my starting pop-up, you can set the width and height of the scene for the camera view, and provided that's the same size as the screen, it's as pixelated, if you like, as the size of the screen. So 1 pixel in your drawing is 1 pixel on screen, so it shouldn't look any more pixelated. And when you add a new level of a smart raster or raster level, again you can change the width and height, and if this is the same size as the scene, then it shouldn't look pixelated at all. And I think what people have problems with sometimes is they'll tend to zoom in and look close up and see how pixelated the lines are, but they will look pixelated if you're going to zoom in. When you play this as a video, if I right click and choose reset view, no, if I choose, which one? Reset view fits that to there. Fit to window fits here. I'm trying to think what the 100% is. I don't know if the menu options have fallen off though, I've forgotten. But if you basically move to 100% view, which this is here, so if I can go, actually I can go to full screen mode and then fit to window. That is the size of the screen and of the animation on the screen. So if someone views your animation at full screen, that's the most they'll get. And as a video file, your viewers can't zoom in, or very rarely will zoom in. So it's irrelevant if it's too pixelated in that view. So I think OpenToonz and Tahoma does a pretty good job of creating clear images. Okay, so we've got the up position, and that's where the leg is coming backwards a little bit and the character is starting to become on tiptoes. So let's, again, a nice broad thigh there, and it's coming back, and the left leg is on sort of a bit of a tiptoe position. He's not wearing flares, so we don't want it that wide. And again, this is a sketch level, so I'm quite happy for this to be quite messy. But I do want to try and keep the position of the body parts the same. So something I didn't quite get right last week, and I forgot to add a guide for it this week as well, you may have noticed, is as the body moves up and down, we want the position of the knee to also move up and down with it, so that the leg doesn't seem to extend as he walks. But a little bit of extension is okay, because after all, this is a cartoon, so it can have some exaggeration of that. Okay, so then drawing 4 as the left leg here, and in fact, for drawing 3, I didn't do the right leg here. Hi there, D Rambo. Thank you, it's very kind of you to say so. So we want the passing leg here from the right leg at the back to start to come forward. And I hope a few of you are managing to join along with me and try to draw your own walk cycle. And if you have something at the end that you want to share, do pop it into the Discord. I'd love to take a look at it and see how you get on. Then in the up position, the right leg is going to be coming forwards. You can see on the previous drawing it was here, and this is drawing number 4. Remember the 5-frame walk cycle where you go, or the 5-frame movement cycle, where you go from the far left to the far right, and the 3 positions are in between. So this is position number 4, so it's not all the way at the left hand side, so it's a little bit away from there. Soda Pop's asking, will I ever do a video on motion paths? Absolutely, that's in my list to do at some point. I've had a little play with motion paths. They're really, really useful, but not easy to get into and to understand how to animate them. So that's something I'd definitely plan to do so. Don't worry, Broccoli, the stream will be recorded and put up onto YouTube later on this evening. So you'll be able to take a look at it later on today or tomorrow or in the future. And I'll also add in some timestamps into the description when I've finished today, so you can jump to each section of the video to get to the right part. Okay, let's add that. And these feet aren't looking particularly monstrous, but again, we can add that later. For now, we're concentrating on the movement and the timing of this. Okay, and then for drawing number 5, we can take a look at drawing number 1, because it's a mirror of that drawing. So where on drawing number 1, the left leg was all the way to the front, on drawing 5, it's going to be all the way to the back. But first, let me take the eraser and remove some of the parts of the drawing that we can't see. So that gets rid of those lines on the body. It'll make it easy to see which leg is at the front and which is at the back. Make this a little bit wider. Okay, so drawing number 5, this is fully at the back. And even though we're sort of tracing over the position of these legs now for the final 4 drawings, remember that the distance affects the length of the leg. So the left leg will touch the ground, whereas the right leg is slightly higher up the screen to show the distance back. So we don't trace it exactly because we want this foot to be on the ground here. And then Again, I'll erase the parts of the body so you can see that's at the front. And the leg at the back wants to be off the ground, so let's draw that part first. Okay, so I've got this issue occasionally in Tahoma where, as I mentioned earlier, you can hold down the Shift key and then draw a straight line in any direction like that. Although it doesn't always work with all of the raster brushes, so that's something to be aware of. But sometimes when you come to draw without holding the Shift key down, it still tries to draw a straight line. So that's just something to watch out for. And generally, changing the frame and back fixes the issue. Okay, so let's quickly add in the last 3 drawings. Well, I hope we're all doing okay today. Do pop in the chat and say hello. Let everybody know what you're up to today. And finally, drawing number 8. So again, you have to concentrate on which leg is which on the left and right, which is at the front and which is on the back. So I've already marked the left leg by the moving hip, so we'll keep an eye on that. In fact, let me trace over this foot. And then move it up a little bit off the ground. Okay, let's just see how that looks. Okay, that's okay for the legs there moving. They seem to be swaying. Okay, I'm moving in a decent pace. So now let's add the arms. I've not quite decided how this should look yet. So we'll just throw in a quick arm and see how it comes out, just to get something swinging. I probably won't do the hands for the claws, but let's start to draw something. So we've got the rough movement of this. I've already got the position of the shoulder, which is good. So we can just draw this on. So we're on the contact pose first. And we'll do it as simply as that. Just a couple of lines. So swing it more outwards here. And there's some lag on the drawing, but that's okay. Just fix that up. Number 3 is where the arm swings forward. Number 4 is the up position, where the arm is just coming off the front here. And again, watch out for the length of the elbow. And 5, the arm is at the front. And the down again, which is the widest part, and then passing where it swings back. Hi there, Amar, welcome. Things are going really well. I talked about earlier the new release of Tahoma, the 1.1 beta. I went through some of the features, and I'm working on yet another walk cycle just to practice. Again, another walk cycle, but this time I'm trying to add some more rotation to the hips and to the shoulders, which is why I've placed the circles for the shoulder blades and the hips before I started drawing the movement, and that's coming along really nicely so far. How are you doing today? So if I just hit play on that, we've got the arm moving as well. So that's the basic movement that I talked about last week. Excellent. That's good. Are you streaming today, Amar? You seem to be busy most days. So what I need to do now is the rotation of the head, because I copy and pasted, if you remember, the main body and head shape. We've got the hips moving with the legs at the bottom and the shoulder blades moving. Hi there, Doc Sledge. Sculptober, I've not seen that. I'm guessing it's just sculpting, maybe clay or something, or plasticine. Do you share those images on any Discord channels? Because that'd be really cool to see. So what I want to do is, we've got the position of each facial feature. So where the left leg is rotated forwards, the left arm will be rotated backwards. So the face is going to move with the arm. So I need to bring the facial features round to this side nearest the camera. Digital or traditional? Nice. So as I say, this is just the sketch level. So I'm not too concerned about it being messy. So I'll just draw over the top, I think, and then erase what's left. And then we'll tidy that up when I redraw it later. Okay, so on the face facing forwards. Please do, Amar, I'd love to see them. So we'll have the nose at this position. And the eyes around here. So this is possibly too much, but we'll see. Excellent, Dog Sledge. Well, you're welcome to be on board here. I've got plenty of videos on my YouTube channel, so do take a look through those. And even though they say they're for open tunes, they work just as well for Tahoma, so do take a look at those. Okay, so that's with the face coming towards us, and then the leg moves towards the passing position where it is in the centre. So the face is exactly going to be shown from the side here. Also, Doc Sledge, have you found the Discord channel? Because that's a great place to be, because there's loads of OpenTunes and Tahoma users hanging out there. So if you have any questions, you can ask on there, and people will either point you to the right video that can help, or we can help directly. So in the position between drawing 1, where the face is facing towards us, and drawing 3, where it's sideways, I need to add an in-between. So I'll erase those two sets of features here, and then show the onion skin for drawings 1 and 3. Okay, so we can see the horn, so we can add the difference there. And the nose I'll do next to move to here. The eye, oops. It's a bit tricky with the delay, but let's see how we get on. And the left eye needs to be that side. And you might notice I'm switching tools quite a lot between the eraser and the pencil, and that's because I've got buttons on my tablet for quick switching. And not everybody likes the tablet buttons, but just for going between the brush and the eraser and using undo and save, I think it's invaluable. Let's turn off the onion skin. And I think that'll just about do. Again, I'm not worried about it being too messy. It's the movement and the position I'm more interested in at this stage. But I will tidy up a couple of those lines just to make it easier to see what I'm drawing. And then as the character turns around to the opposite direction, the face disappears around the back. So I will erase these off again. And I use frame flipping to see where to draw them. So there's drawing 3 facing directly to the side. Then drawing 5 needs to be the opposite of this one, where it's pointing the 3/4 view in the other direction. So let me use the cursor keys to flip between it. So you can see the horn here is directly above the shoulder. So I need to move that over to here. And then we'll do the one in between. I'll turn on the onion skin for that. And you have to look at the position of the previous drawings to get that in the right place as well. So we need to look at the height of the drawing before, which is here in red, and the drawing after is in green. And this one is quite high up, so I need to go like this much higher than the red line. Please do, Amar. I'd love to see it. I'd love to, absolutely love to see it. So please do that and share that on the Discord. Okay, so this is the face turned the furthest away. So the nose is going to be barely visible there, just the bottom part. We won't see the eyes at all on this side, but they will be visible over the top here. And I'll get rid of that gap. And drawing 4 is in between the two. Is there a benefit why levels instead of timeline for frame by frame raster animation? Enyo-san, hi there, welcome. It's going really well today. So far, I'm working on a walk cycle at the minute. Not sure how well it's going, we'll see shortly. I've got the legs and the arms basic positions in the right places. That's working really well. And now I'm just trying to rotate the top of the head, which is something I didn't do last week. So I thought we'd try and do that this week and see how it goes. Ukuman, you was asking about something about the levels for frame by frame. Are you asking about the types of levels, smart raster or raster? Or are you asking about the timeline versus the X sheet? I'm not quite sure what the question is there. Are you doing any animation today, Enyo-san? And if not, do you fancy doing a walk cycle and joining in? And then maybe sharing it on the Discord site? Because Amar was just saying he's going to draw one as well. Just to share with us and to see how he goes on. So he's certainly got much more experience than I have with this. So it'd be really interesting to see what he does. And the same for you, if you've got time. Yes, Superman, I like using both the timeline and the X sheet for different purposes. But Tahoma 2D comes set up with the timeline initially. Yeah, fantastic, Enyo-san. I'd love to see that. So that'd be great to see. I'll probably do a bit of a review of what I've done so far in the walk cycle once I get to the end of this section. So the timeline, I didn't used to use as much. I got used to working with the X sheet in OpenToons, and I use that because of the layout, especially for doing note levels, because each column is wider so you can see more of the text. Whereas here you can see they're quite short, so you can't always see the name of the level, and note levels are difficult to use in this style. But I've got more used to the timeline since using Tahoma. And so far, I've not really reverted back to the X sheet, apart from when I've gone to the timing room. I sometimes change the timeline into the X sheet and place it side by side here, next to the spreadsheet view of the animation columns, and then they sit at the same level of each frame, so it makes it easier to compare the animation frame keys moving up and down along with the drawings, rather than being in two different planes where the timeline goes across and the animation keys go up and down. Having them side by side is really, really useful. But most of the time I've been sticking with the timeline. Okay, so that's the drawings 1 to 5, where he moves entirely from facing towards the screen to turning and facing away from the screen. Make the timeline shorter in the bottle panel. It's kind of up to your preference, depending what you're working on. If you mean by shorter the size of these drawings, you can adjust that with a slider at the bottom. And personally, I like seeing the drawing numbers. It makes it easier to follow on shorter animations or shorter parts of the animation. But then once the animation is longer and you're working with perhaps animation keys or just aligning different columns together, then I'll make it shorter so I can see more. But for me, I don't see why I need to have just, say, an inch of space here for my 8 drawings, when I can make them larger and see the drawing numbers. That works for me. I think you're right, Amar, as we was talking about the other day, where you're suggesting 30 minutes for the walk cycle. That's probably plenty. If you're not working on a stream and chatting about other things, I think 30 minutes can pull a walk cycle together. So now from drawing 6, 7 and 8, they're going to be the head in the same position of drawings 4, 3 and 2, but in reverse order as the face comes back round to the front. So the position of the eye should be the same, and the horn should be the same as drawing 4. So let me erase the drawing that's there now for the base drawing. And then we can see the position of the horn here is in the center above the shoulder again. The eye is just visible over the top, like that. And then the nose comes down at the front like that. Then drawing number 7 is the same as drawing 3. So that's the face in this neutral position. So let me just erase the lines of the body that goes over the lines of the face features. Draw the eye. And then drawing 8 should be the same as drawing 2. So again, let's remove those. Remember, drawing 1, it's got the face fully to the front. So 8 is the same as 2, so it'll link up as a cycle back to frame 1. The only difference being that the drawing is offset. This is at the top instead of at the very bottom. So what I could do is, if I choose I've not used this for a little while, the shift and trace features to help trace those in the right position. So let me show you how they work. So if I turn on shift and trace, I can then show the difference between frame 8 and frame 2. And then I can click edit shift. I can choose the previous drawing, which is the red one. It's showing the red block here. So that's drawing 2. So I can move this up so that drawing 2's body is aligned with drawing 8's body. And now if I use the pen tool, I can trace directly over that, even though the drawings are offset on the original drawings. So now I can just simply trace that in this position, and the drawings will be exactly the same with the features, even though they are slightly offset. So let me erase the parts I don't need. Hit save, save all. As Dave says from Blended Planet, save early, save often. And then if I turn off the shift and trace, I can see drawing 2 back where it was, but now my drawing 8, I've drawn the features in the same position. Animate Autumn1 asks, does Tahoma have peg bars that allow you to move columns and drawings across the stage? Yes, it does. It's got peg bars for that feature, but you can move the columns directly by animating the columns. So if I wanted to move this column of the sketched body, I can choose the animate tool, go to the position mode, and just move that whole column to where it needs to be. And if I go to drawing 1 and place the key here, I can move drawing 8 over to the left, and then as you play from drawing 1 through to 8, the character moves across the screen. So you don't need to use peg bars if you don't want to. You can just animate the columns. But if you do want to, I'll save that. If we go to the FX room in Tahoma, you can add a peg bar here on the stage schematic. I don't know if you've used the stage schematic or not, but this is the schematic view for organising the column nodes and others. At the bottom right there's a button to change between this view, which is the stage schematic, which is the columns attached to the table, or the FX schematic, which is the columns attached to the scene and the output, where you can attach effects to them. So if you make sure you're on the stage schematic, there's a button here for adding a peg, and then you can simply connect the body column through that peg, and then if you select the peg and choose the animate tool, you can see peg 1 here is selected. So again, on frame 1, I can position the drawing on the left hand side. On frame 8, position it, in reverse for you. So drawing 1, position it on the right, position 8, drawing 8, position on the left, and then as you play the animation, the character still moves across, but that's the peg that's being animated, not the column. So let me delete that peg. And come back here. So yes, peg bars, they're there, but sometimes it's best to animate on the column directly, because also you get to see the keys on the timeline. Jim P Animation asks, how do you set the perspective point in Tahoma 2D? Let me show you that. If I go to a fresh drawing and take that off. Simply, while you're in the brush mode, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, it does tell you what the shortcut keys are, and underneath drawing 8 or so, frame 8, you see it says Control and Alt to add or remove a vanishing point. So if you press Control and Alt and then click on the left hand side, you'll see a faint green circle, and I hold Control and Alt. I can do it on the right hand side, and there's a circle here. And I demonstrated earlier, and you might want to take a look at this on YouTube later, the full recording, because I went through some Tahoma news where I explained all the new features in the next version. But at the right hand side here, you click on the arrow to the side of the guide button, and you can choose to show guides, including the vanishing point rays, which makes it easier to see where the vanishing points are, and you can adjust the lines that are shown and their opacity of how clearly you want to see them. And now if you hold the Alt key, you draw towards the vanishing point. And you can go to either of the 2 points there, either towards them or away from them. And to remove the vanishing point, you can hold Control and Alt and just click on the same point. And as you get near, you'll see it highlights as a red circle, and click it to remove it. So I hope that helps, Jim. Okay, so I've got this face rotating. Let's see how well it rotates. No problem at all, Jim. Now again, there is an issue that sometimes Tahoma and OpenToons decide to play an extra blank frame as it's playing, which is a bit peculiar. So let me try that now. You get a kind of a blink, which I don't know why it happens. Okay, so you can see the face rotating now with the shoulder as he rotates round to the left and to the right, which gives a bit more of a dynamic movement. And you see I've only drawn one horn, so let me quickly go in and draw another on the opposing side. Oops, change the pencil view, the pencil brush, and add that in there. And remember that the horn on the left hand side is directly, well, more or less directly above his shoulder, because there is some extra twisting of the shoulder to the head. So on the right hand side, you want to match where the arm will be on the right hand side. So let's add that. Oh, it is now. You're right. Thank you, Enyo-san. Let's try it again on frame 8. Fantastic. Thank you for that. So again, from drawing 6 through to 8, I'll show the onion skin for 2 to 4 to show the inverse position, because this is just a mirrored position of that drawing. There we go. Okay, let's see how that looks. Yep, so that's the two horns moving around on the opposite sides. And one last thing I didn't add is the arm moving on the opposing side. So let me move these lines first here, and then I'll draw the arm on the opposite side. And again, if you've just joined the stream, you'll notice I'm not drawing the hand on the arm. It's just a rough position to see it moving, so I can see it swaying and swinging. So I hope you're all getting on well with your walk cycles, and as I said earlier, please do share them in the Discord server. I'd love to see them, to see how we all get on. And if you're struggling at all, don't be afraid to ask for advice. There's plenty of people there that can help out. Amar is really quite expert at this, and so is Enyo-san. And I've drawn the occasional walk cycle, so I might be able to help out too. So let's just add this arm in here. And there is a bit of a delay, so the drawing is just not quite catching up properly there. And I'm trying to mirror the left hand arm where it moves up and down, as well as the angle that it's moving out at. Good. So let's see how that looks. Well, from what I've seen, Amar, you're pretty good. So I'd certainly put you in that expert category for the Discord. No gag hacks, you've not missed a lot. I've basically, I think since we last spoke, completed the leg movements, added the arm movements, the rough position of them, and also the rotation of the head to try and match the shoulders, as it were, as he rotates. So for me, that's the very basic 8 positions for a walk cycle. And as I said earlier, I'm playing this at 6 frames a second. So if you scale this up to run as a 24 frame animation, each drawing is held for 4 frames. And last week on the stream, I did in between to show you how you'd in between to try and have the drawings nearer to one side than to the other, and that made the movement much smoother. So I'll probably do that off stream and complete that, and that'll give me a 16 frame animation running on 2s at 24 frames a second. So what I'll do next in that position is I'll change the frames per second to 12 frames a second. I'll extend these drawings out for 2 drawings and then work on that to add the in-betweens between each of these drawings. And I also want to change the perspective, the proportions, I think, to make sure that the arms and elbows and like the kneecaps are all the same length as they move and swing on their arcs. So I'd look at that. And I think I'd also change a little bit of the position of the face. I'm not sure if that necessarily moves in exactly the right place to show that rotation properly. So I'll take a look at that. Please do gag hacks, I'd love to see it. So I think I'll leave it there for now, and I'll go offline and complete this stream after I've made myself another cup of tea. So if anyone's online and you've got any more questions, do fire them through. And even though I've got this drawn as what I call a monster, it's just a peculiar shaped creature, it's kind of a fairly standard walk. So it's not walking very monstrously. So it's not got his claws out and is going as he's moving, and his feet aren't particularly stamping or being monstrous as he moves. But it's still a nice way to get into walk cycles, I think. So I'll be keen to see what you can do with this for your own walk cycles. And if there's no more questions, I think we'll call that my Sunday tea time. And I think we'll call that a Darren Tea. Have you always wanted to animate but didn't know how to start, and software seemed expensive and difficult to use? Well, with OpenToonz, it's free, powerful, and once you know how, it's easy to use. And it's my mission to get you animating with it today. Hi, my name's Darren, and I've been teaching OpenToonz for the past 3 years, showing thousands of students just like you how easy it is to animate with, and cutting through the jargon to show that anyone can animate with it. And by the end of the course, you'll be able to animate traditionally using OpenToonz. And the course is designed for students brand new to OpenToonz, as well as those new to animation. So take a look at the free lessons I've offered below, and then why not sign up and join me animating traditionally with OpenToonz.